I like how KJP makes me feel. She gives me confidence that I could do that job. Former Biden press secretary Karine Jean Pierre announced that she's writing a tell-all book about the Biden administration. In response, people are saying, thanks, but I just wanted a Big Mac. And when Joe Biden was asked if he's going to read the book, he replied, over my soon-to-be dead body.
She had no clue that stepping into that press briefing would turn into a public roasting session, with Greg Gutfeld as the head chef. 1 minute, Karine Jean Pierre was flipping the usual scripted White House responses, and the next, Gutfeld lit her up like a 4th of July grill on live TV. He didn't just criticize her, nah. He hosted a whole roast and brought a buffet of sarcasm, dry humor, and facts dipped in flaming hot truth.
All right, so Karine Jean Pierre wrote a book, and her fans are already sharpening their crayons. And it's just what we need, a tell-all from the woman who spent 2 years telling everyone that Joe just had a cold and not rigor mortis. If the title hadn't already been taken, it should be called Art of the Steal.
This wasn't a press moment. It was a comedy massacre disguised as commentary, and Karine got served with a side of humiliation. Every time she steps into that room, it's like she's starring in an off-Broadway disaster called Deflect, Distract, and Deny, the Tap Dance Chronicles. No script, no rhythm, just loose talking points and an empty binder getting shuffled like it's holding state secrets, when it's really just yesterday's tweets and today's confusion. And while she tries to dazzle with words, it all lands like a karaoke night gone wrong. Her sentences spiral into vague riddles. Her facts wobble like cheap heels on wet marble, and her confidence melts faster than a popsicle in Phoenix. Gutfeld didn't even have to try. He just gave her that smug, "Are you serious?" look, and the whole press room could feel the secondhand embarrassment kick in. Watching her try to answer real questions is like watching someone attempt to microwave a steak. Completely the wrong tool for job, and the result, tough to chew and impossible to swallow. This wasn't a verbal back and forth. This was a mercy roast on national TV. No need for a mic drop. Greg just stood there grinning while her credibility crumbled like dollar store makeup in a sauna. Brutal but hilarious.
KJP also says she's leaving the Democratic Party. I say God bless her. Not many people have the patience to wait in a line that long. In her book, she says the White House was broken. This after 2 years along a president who wasn't housebroken. But she only realized this after she stopped getting paid to defend it. But like Jake Tapper's book, it's a new genre of Biden tell-alls that should be subtitled, I had no idea because I'm severely retarded.
Let's be real. Karine Jean Pierre has mastered the art of saying absolutely nothing with maximum confidence. She's basically that robotic voice you get when calling customer service, the one that keeps repeating, please hold while your soul leaves your body. Ask her a simple question, and suddenly it's like watching a GPS glitch out mid-route. She loops, stalls, and reroutes back to nowhere. Every time the press tries to get clarity, she delivers responses so empty they could be used as echo chambers. It's like summoning the ghosts of vague politicians' past, except this one's at a podium, a press badge, and a binder full of blank promises. And shout out to Greg Gutfeld, who rolled in with nothing but razor-sharp sarcasm and a brain that still works without buffering. That alone was enough to short-circuit Karine's whole routine. She glitched harder than an old laptop running 37 tabs and Windows XP at the same time. When it comes to giving straight answers, she's got the precision fabustic composant despierov a DMV line 5 minutes before closing. If urgency were required, she'd still be stuck in yesterday's talking points, acting like they're brand new headlines. But hey, let's give her some credit. Nobody dodges a question quite like Karine. If Olympic gold was handed out for verbal gymnastics, she'd be in a league of her own, flipping over facts and backflipping away from any shred of responsibility. Gutfeld didn't have to grill her. He just lit the match and boom, she turned into a malfunctioning smoke machine. Forget fact-checking her answers. The real challenge is finding out if any of her sentences actually land somewhere that makes sense. Spoiler alert, her answers don't land. They crash and burn.
She realizes she was carrying water for a man whose brain was as wet as his pants. Remember, this is the same broad who stared America in the face and said this.
Comments were made in that report about that, obviously about his memory that we don't believe lives in reality. 80's the new 40, didn't you hear? He is as sharp as ever. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith.
And it's not true, right? The president wasn't wandering.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not.
He's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with him.
And what makes it even funnier is that Greg Gutfeld didn't need fireworks or a speech. All it took was a sarcastic grin, a couple well-placed side eyes, and boom. Karine Jean Pierre was one sentence away from quoting SpongeBob as her primary source. Watching her spiral was like watching someone try to explain NFTs to their grandma's houseplant. Confusing, pointless, and everyone left dumber than you'd think after months of mixing up inflation with climate change, with immigration, with whatever headline was trending on Twitter that morning. She'd finally come up with a game plan. But nah, she sticks to the classics. Dodge the question, pivot hard, blame someone from 3 presidents ago, sprinkle in a few buzzwords like equity or restore it, and hope the room just moves on to AT this point. She's basically a human magic 8-ball. Shake her up, ask a direct question, and get a vague answer like outlook unclear or refer to the agencies. Gutfeld didn't even need flashcards. Karine is a presentation. Her performance was so off-script, it made improv night at a karaoke bar look coordinated. And let's be honest, her job is literally to communicate. That's the whole job. But she's got the verbal precision of a malfunctioning toaster. Every answer sounds like a motivational poster got translated into 5 languages and then faxed back to the 90S. It's like watching a hamster wrestle a Rubik's Cube, determined, slightly stressed, and going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, you couldn't keep up with Joe. Sorry, Joe couldn't keep up with FDR in the 100-yard dash. And I'm talking right now.
Damn.
But she expected us to believe she couldn't keep up with the guy who had to have an electric fence put up around the White House so he wouldn't in the neighbor's yard.
And let's not kid ourselves. This isn't new behavior. Karine's been dodging accountability, like it's her side hustle. If she was any more evasive, she'd be hiding out in a remote cabin under the alias Not My Job. Her prep routine probably consists of putting on her serious face glasses, slapping some colorful charts into a binder, and walking up to that podium like she's about to deliver a TED Talk in a universe where truth is just a suggestion. And no wonder Gutfeld didn't even break a sweat. This roast practically wrote itself. So what exactly does Karine Jean Pierre bring to the table? A binder. And not just any binder. This thing is so massive it probably qualifies for its own congressional district. But every time she opens it, it's like flipping to the back of a shampoo bottle. Full of vague jargon, half-formed thoughts, and a bunch of stuff that sounds official but means absolutely nothing. Greg Gutfeld must have looked at that thing and thought she was auditioning to be the assistant manager of a gas station library. You know you've hit rock bottom when Gutfeld, the king of sarcasm, doesn't even need to exaggerate because the facts are already a parody. Karine's straight face told America the border is secure, whilst looking more like a Walking Dead season finale out there. Then in another briefing, she claimed the economy was thriving. On the same day eggs were selling like luxury tech drops. You can't make this up.
So was Karine too dumb to notice Biden was a mess, or was she just dishonest? Pick your poison, moron or mercenary. Now there's a great name for her book. I'm going with mercenary, because this whole book tour didn't spring from a burst of guilt. According to Politico, she was copying her publicist on emails while still press secretary. So she was planning this from the podium. She's like a pilot who puts on his parachute and oxygen mask while your plane's leaving the airport.
At this point, her relationship with reality is basically long distance. They used to be close, but now she just waves at it during commercial breaks. And don't even get started on the blame game. Everything is always someone else's fault. The last administration, Congress, corporations, climate change, white supremacy, Mercury in retrograde, the Supreme Court, and probably Greg Gutfeld's eyebrows. Yeah, those two. If a meteor slammed into D.C., she'd hold a press briefing blaming Elon Musk, colonialism, and maybe gluten. Watching her pass the buck is like watching a toddler caught red-handed with crayon on the wall, insisting it wasn't me. The crayon moved on its own, and there's Gutfeld just sitting back, arms crossed, grinning like a patient villain in a cartoon. He doesn't even have to raise his voice. She self-destructs on contact, because when your defense strategy is a binder thicker than your logic, and your answers make eggs sound like a luxury item, the Euros writes itself.
This wasn't a crisis of faith, it was a business plan. She didn't leave the Democrat Party. She managed her exit like Pelosi dumping stocks before she signs the corporate tax hike. She was even pining for a spot on The View, which is like angling for the best seat in a garbage truck. But she didn't get the gig, probably because she refused their lunch bucket of thawed mackerel. That's what you feed the talent at SeaWorld.
Greg Gutfeld didn't even have to interrupt the spirals. He just sat back and watched her unravel like a discount sweater in a washing machine. Karine Jean Pierre was serving up a word salad, so thick it can make a vegan cry. And honestly, at some point, it's not about debating her. It's about giving her just enough verbal rope and letting the entire metaphorical jungle gym collapse right on cue. And the wildest part? She still acts like she's owning the room. Sis, you're not even winning against your own binder. Every time she flips a page, it's another tragic entry in the How Not to Be a Press Secretary handbook. At this point, she could publish that binder, call it 50 Shades of Spin, and sell at every failed communications course. In DC, Gutfeld didn't even need to raise his voice. Why would he? The whole performance played out like a live taping of Late Night with confusion and deflection. Karine Jean Pierre is the only person who can take a yes or no question and stretch it into a 3-part docu series with filler episodes. She talks in circles so tight that even Google Maps would be like, yo, you're on your own.
Now, even the most reliable lefties are roasting her, but it serves him right. After all, she was their pick, a historic first. Black, lesbian, and board certified by Visiting Angels. But you know it's bad when DC operatives call it a grift. Hell, that's like Taylor Swift calling you a 6. But they say that she was ineffectual, unprepared, needed to be coddled, and couldn't manage a team. What's that sound like? DEI. What happens when you hire someone based on identity and not merit? She said,
what really seals the deal? That unshakable smug confidence. You know the look. Like she just cracked the Da Vinci Code when all she did was read half a memo out loud. Her face says, I've got this. But her answer screamed 404 error. Policy not found. Gutfeld didn't destroy her with stats or rage. He didn't need to. She combusted under the weight of her own overconfidence and incoherence. It was like watching someone trip over their own flashcards while proudly claiming they just nailed a TED Talk. AT1 point. Brace yourself. Karine Jean Pierre tried to explain inflation using a metaphor about kitchen tables and family dinners. Because clearly, nothing says deep economic insight like breaking down skyrocketing prices, as if she's hosting a preschool puppet show. Little Timmy can't afford juice because Republicans. That's the analysis. Cool. Now do gas prices, because it costs more to fill your tank than to book a therapy session in Manhattan. Meanwhile, Gutfeld just sat there smirking like a guy watching Magician, who keeps dropping every single card but insists the trick is working. And honestly, who could blame him? Every sentence Karine drops feels like a firework of failure. Big noise, flashy words, and nothing but smoke when it fades. She's not the press secretary anymore. She's officially been promoted to excuse secretary. Her whole communication strategy seems to rely on one thing. Talk long enough, and people will forget what the question even was. And the scary part? Sometimes it actually works. Mainly because halfway through her answer, you start wondering if she's even speaking English or just freestyling from a rejected political Mad Lib script. Ask about inflation, and somehow your need in a rant about community investment, legacy partnerships, windows of growth, and equitable accountability.
Personally, I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me. What was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad, and I had never seen anything like it before.
What does it all mean? No one knows, not even Karine. It's like she threw buzzwords into a blender and hit puree. And let's not forget her wannabe inspirational moments. You know the ones. She tries to channel that Obama-style gravitas, voice lowered, eyes wide, big dramatic pause, and then drop something like, today we stand united for progress, strength, values, equity, boxes, windows. Ma'am, that's not a speech. That is a cereal box slogan with stage lighting. Greg didn't even need a punchline. Her answers were the joke, and the crowd was already laughing. Next question? More like next meltdown. Greg Gutfeld didn't show up with fire. He showed up with mirror. And what stared back? A press secretary-shaped disaster with a smile so forced, it looks like it's holding back a full-blown system crash every time someone says the words immigration, Ukraine, or literally anything that demands a real answer.
The president has done more to secure the border and to deal with this issue of immigration than anybody else. He really has.
There's a word for that. Pathological.
And the saddest part? She thinks it's all going great. Like the Titanic band, still playing while the ship goes under. Karine Jean Pierre is out here delivering talking points while credibility sinks to the ocean floor. Meanwhile, Greg's just that guy pointing at the lifeboats, laughing because she's out here trying to plug gaping holes in logic with confetti and hope. And the press? Oh, they just nod along like this verbal Jenga tower isn't collapsing every 20 seconds. Greg doesn't need a podium, a debate, or even a full monologue. Just one clip of Karine spinning in circles, and the comedy writes itself. Her version of crisis control? Control plus Alt plus Delete, and hope for the best. Her way of handling criticism? Duck, cover, and toss out words like equity and historic until the smoke clears. And when she wants to sound bold, she just rearranges the same vague sentence. We stand firmly committed to the pillars of something. It's like a motivational fridge magnet with a government seal slapped on it. She's a human embodiment of buffering. You ask the question, wait 7 awkward seconds, and get nothing but that invisible spinning wheel of generalities. The moment she starts talking, you can practically hear the dial-up internet sound effects in the background. Greg Gutfeld didn't have to destroy her. Karine walked into that room carrying a whole box of self-lit marshmallows doused in lighter fluid, smiling like she was about to win an award. All he had to do was step back and let the fireworks burn themselves out.
We need to stop thinking in boxes. But as a black, lesbian, French, Haitian female, she checks more boxes than a gynecologist.
On the order form!
On the order form!
Oh my God!
All those applications you gotta fill out.
That's the thing.
What, you think I meant vaginas?
Ew.
Disgusting people. But now everyone says she's incompetent and lazy. You know, after they called me racist for saying that. That's not why I'm racist.
Nope.
If this administration were a sitcom, Karine Jean Pierre would be the character who walks in, delivers 5 sentences of confusing exposition, then face plants over the coffee table while insisting everything's under control. And Greg Gutfeld? He's not just a laugh track. He is the laughter. No edits, no retakes. Just live, raw disbelief at the madness unfolding on stage. This isn't political theater anymore. This is full-blown political karaoke, and Karine keeps picking the same off-key song, forgetting the lyrics halfway through, and pretending the mic isn't even on. Every press conference feels like one of those choose-your-own-adventure books, except it was written by someone who's never actually finished a sentence. The options are always A, pivot, B, deflect, or C, collapse into incoherence. Gutfeld didn't need research notes or even caffeine. Karine showed up preloaded with confusion. All Greg had to do was point the circus tent and watch her juggle buzzwords, misfires, and awkward pauses straight into the abyss. She's not spinning facts. She's tossing them into a blender, hitting turbo, and hoping the noise is loud enough to drown out the silence of substance. But let's cut through the comedy. This isn't even about left or right. It's about basic competence. And Karine's got the political instincts of a baked potato in a tuxedo. She might look official, but when she starts talking, it's less policy briefing and more live reenactment of confusion in real time as performance art meets paralysis. And nobody's clapping to SLR's Gutfeld, armed with nothing but sarcasm and a functioning brain, watching Karine attempt her greatest illusion yet, pretending there's still credibility left to torch. This wasn't a takedown. It was a slow-motion political wake. And the coffin? Stuffed with every unanswered question, every evaded topic, every chart wave with no meaning to be why now. Her briefings have gone from news update to abstract theater. Think interpretive dance, but performed through a fog of government doublespeak. And the only thing getting clearer, Karine's completely lost the plot, while Greg's just sitting front row, popcorn in hand, watching the final act unfold. She rattles off riddles, half-baked truths, and metaphors so twisted they make a fortune cookie want to retire early. Ask Karine about border security, and somehow she ends up talking about infrastructure upgrades. Bring up inflation, and she starts rambling about equity in lemon farming. Like we all accidentally tuned into an agriculture podcast. But by the time she finally finishes a sentence, not only has the original question evaporated, but half the room has aged into retirement eligibility. And yet, she says it all with the confidence of someone who truly believes they just crushed a TED Talk. That's the part that broke Gutfeld. Not the nonsense itself, but the sheer pride she wraps it in. Watching someone be this confidently wrong, over and over again, is like witnessing a one-woman parade of delusion. Greg didn't need to roast her. He just lifted the curtain. What we saw wasn't a press secretary. It was a walking, talking symbol of political confusion with a press pass and a binder full of excuses. She wasn't dismantled. She was already in pieces, handing them out one botched answer at a time. The real headline, it's not that Gutfeld destroyed Karine. It's that somehow there was anything left to destroy after all her daily self-demolitions, and he didn't break her. He just gave the public a front row seat to a slow-motion collapse, dressed in government-approved buzzwords. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more brutal takedowns, and we'll see you in the next.